Vanessa Reed slammed the invoice onto the workbench. $18,000 for a truck? For that price, I could buy a new one. Aaron Cole, a ground technician, pointed to the bottom line. Not certified until safety inspection is complete. Vanessa scoffed. You think paper can keep my jet grounded? 5 hours later, freezing rain coated the runway in sheet ice. The PA crackled. All departures halted. Ground equipment is uncertified. Desperate, Vanessa slapped her card down. I'll pay double. Get my jet airborne. Aaron pushed it back. This isn't about a truck. It's the price of keeping people alive. The unforgiving sting of early November winds swept over Pine Ridge Regional Airport. Inside North Star Charter's glass hangar, 36-year-old CEO Vanessa Reed adjusted her coat, checking her watch for the 5th time. Today was critical. In less than 6 hours, she was scheduled to meet private equity investors in Denver. Securing their capital expansion deal would save North Star's regional routes and protect dozens of jobs. If she failed, the board would liquidate assets and lay off staff. The pressure was suffocating. Rising fuel surcharges, looming charter loans, and a harsh winter threatening to bleed her balance sheet dry. Vanessa wasn't seeking luxury for her ego. She was fighting to keep her company alive. Out on the frigid tarmac, Aaron Cole, a 40-year-old certified ground support equipment technician, wiped grease onto an old shop rag. Aaron was a quiet single father who maintained the airfield's unsung workhorses, tugs, generators, and de-icing rigs. When North Star's primary de-icing truck, Blue 7, came into his shop for a pre-season check, Aaron didn't just glance at the engine. He inspected every manifold and seal. What he discovered sent a chill through his chest. The hydraulic pump was losing critical operating pressure. The thermal sensor misread temperatures by 20 degrees. 2 high-pressure hoses showed microfractures, and the heating tank showed advanced stress corrosion. Blue 7 could start and spray fluid, but it could not maintain the precise chemical heat threshold required to dissolve clear ice from aircraft wings. To an untrained eye, it was a working truck. To a certified technician, it was a disaster waiting to happen. Aaron drafted an itemized repair quote totaling $18,400 for parts, thermal calibration, pump remachining, and safety recertification. When procurement manager Grace Lynn brought the bill to Vanessa, the CEO marched straight into the maintenance bay. $18,000? Vanessa demanded in front of a dozen mechanics. You're charging me as if you're rebuilding a turbofan jet engine. Aaron stood steady. I don't fix jet engines, Ms. Reed. My job is to ensure ice doesn't make those engines completely useless before you clear the trees. Vanessa waved her hand dismissively. The truck starts. The nozzle sprays. Fix the pressure pump so it passes visual inspection. And skip the rest. We have flights departing tonight. I don't do visual patches on safety equipment, Aaron replied softly. If I don't replace these cracked lines, I will not sign off on its operational safety log. Furious at what she perceived as contractor price gouging, Vanessa terminated North Star's maintenance contract on the spot, declaring she would find a cheaper vendor. Aaron didn't argue. He packed his tools, locked Blue 7's ignition housing, and handed his diagnostic report to Maya Brooks, Director of Airport Operations. Maya reviewed the findings, walked out to the tarmac, and placed a red federal operational seal across Blue 7's cab. North Star had a backup de-icing rig in storage, but it had sat unserviced for nearly 3 years. Later that afternoon, Aaron's 12-year-old daughter Lila brought him a forgotten science project model. Lila loved aerodynamics, but felt subtle embarrassment when classmates bragged about pilot parents while her dad just fixed ground trucks. when she heard he lost a major contract by refusing a quick fix. Lila asked in confusion, "Dad, why couldn't you just fix what she wanted? Now you lost the contract." Aaron knelt beside her. "Lila, nobody notices ground support until something goes terribly wrong. When a pilot makes a mistake, everyone knows. When a mechanic makes a mistake, nobody knows until a plane falls out of the sky. Our job is to make sure the mistake never happens, even if no one thanks us." By evening, the temperature plunged rapidly. An Arctic front collided with southern moisture, turning rain into a sheet of clear ice across the runway. Inside the terminal, Vanessa boarded her private jet. But as the engines whined, Maya's voice crackled over ground control. All departures halted due to severe icing. No aircraft is cleared without certified ground de-icing. The captain cut throttles, pale-faced. "We can't taxi, Ms. Reed. The wings are freezing over, and Northstar has no certified de-icing rig on the field." Vanessa marched into airport operations, convinced Aaron had orchestrated the shutdown out of spite. "This is retaliation," Vanessa barked, slamming her gloves onto Maya Brooks' desk. "Your mechanic is sabotaging my company." Maya looked up calmly. "Mr. Cole doesn't run airport operations, Ms. Reed." "I do. Federal regulations prohibit takeoff with iced control surfaces. Blue 7 failed its audit and is impounded. Bring in a certified vehicle, and I'll clear your jet in 5 minutes. Until then, you stay parked." Realizing Maya wouldn't budge, Vanessa crossed the freezing tarmac to Aaron's workshop. She found him reviewing schematics with his senior technician, Omar Salim. Vanessa pressed her corporate credit card onto the steel table. $18,400 for the repair, plus $10,000 cash right now, if you de-ice my jet within 45 minutes. My Denver meeting is worth $3 million. Name your price." Aaron looked at the card with complete calm. "Ms. Reed, safety signatures aren't for sale. Even if I wanted your money, replacement parts for Blue 7 must be shipped from Minneapolis. Takes 12 hours just for delivery." Vanessa's composure fractured. "Then what am I supposed to do? Watch my company collapse? If you want ground support tonight, we inspect your 3-year-old backup rig in the storage shed," Aaron said. "Under strict conditions. A signed work order, certified stress testing for parts, overtime pay for my crew, a complete pre-use safety audit by Maya Brooks, and the airport tower determines the icing queue order. You don't jump the line because you own a private jet." Vanessa opened her mouth to argue, but looking out the window, reality hit her. It wasn't just her charter plane stuck on the tarmac. Parked at the gates was a regional flight with 62 passengers, including families and elderly travelers. Further down sat cargo planes carrying time-sensitive medical supplies for mountain clinics, and a crew transport with offshore workers eager to return home. Flight crews sat watching duty hour clocks tick toward legal limits. The entire airport was paralyzed. Vanessa began to see that ground support wasn't an isolated line item expense. It was the lifeblood of the airfield. "Inspect the backup rig," Vanessa said quietly. Inside the dark storage hangar, Omar attached a jump pack to the old truck. The engine clicked and groaned. "Seized hydraulic actuator, cold heater core, brittle lines," Omar reported. "Safety recertification expired 2 years ago." Grace Lynn arrived with maintenance logs. Reviewing them, Vanessa discovered Northstar had deferred 3 consecutive preventive maintenance cycles on this backup vehicle to meet an arbitrary 12% cost-cutting directive she had signed. Tiny deferred decisions had accumulated until the entire system failed. "Equipment doesn't care about budget targets, Ms. Reed," Aaron observed softly. "It reacts to physical reality. Maintain it when convenient, or it fails when critical. Vanessa stood in the freezing cold holding the bill she had mocked, finally reading every detail. Pump recalibration, thermal sensor replacement, high-pressure line testing, eco-fluid recovery, independent safety audit, and overnight labor. She realized Aaron's profit margin was razor-thin. Most funds went to certified parts and fair wages for technicians lying on freezing concrete so planes could fly safely. Suddenly, Omar called out from beneath the truck. "Aaron, look at this main distribution manifold." Aaron slid under the chassis. Deep inside the heating assembly was a hairline fracture. Pressurizing the system with fluid heated to 180 degrees would cause the manifold to burst, spraying scalding chemicals directly onto the operator. "Can't we just weld the seam?" Vanessa asked desperately. "A temporary weld to hold for a few hours?" Aaron slid out from beneath the chassis, wiping grease from his forehead. "A surface weld on cast iron without stress relieving will crack under thermal expansion within 10 minutes. 90 pounds of pressure spraying scalding fluid will severely burn the operator and damage the tail section. We don't do temporary welds on pressure vessels." Maya Brooks walked in, checking her tablet. "Even if he welded it, I wouldn't issue an emergency permit. Pine Ridge will not risk ground fatalities to meet a flight schedule." Vanessa sank onto a wooden crate. She called the Denver investment team, but their schedule was rigid. If she wasn't in their boardroom by midnight, the funding package would go to a competitor. Mountain passes were closed by jackknifed trucks, and helicopters were grounded by rotor ice. For the first time, status and money could not bypass physical laws. Thermodynamics didn't care about her title. Across the bay, Aaron checked his watch. It was 7 o'clock, the exact time Lila was presenting her science project at school. He had promised to sit in the front row. He dialed her number with a heavy heart. "Hey, sweetheart." "Dad," Lila answered. "Are you on your way?" Aaron took a steady breath. "Lila, an icing storm hit the airfield. If we don't fix the equipment, medical supply planes and 60 passengers won't leave the ground. I have to stay and work through the night." There was a quiet silence. "You promised, Dad," Lila whispered. "I know, and I broke that promise," Aaron said, taking full responsibility without excuses. "I won't ask you to pretend it's okay, but I asked Omar's son to video your presentation, and tomorrow morning, I want you to give me the full presentation right here at the shop. I am so proud of you." "Okay, Dad, be careful on the ice." Omar then tapped Aaron's shoulder, pointing to a decommissioned crash tender truck in the warehouse corner. "What about its auxiliary heat exchanger?" Aaron pulled up technical manuals. The crash tender's exchanger shared the exact bolt pattern pressure rating and metallurgy as the backup rig, complete with traceable maintenance records. The crew went to work. They didn't skip steps, verifying serial compatibility, flushing chambers, torque specifying bolts, and running hydrostatic pressure tests at 150% capacity. During those long hours, something shifted in Vanessa. Realizing ordering people around was useless, she contributed where her skills mattered. She called the equipment manufacturer's VP directly to obtain official engineering sign-off within 20 minutes. She approved express shipping fees, ordered hot food for the technicians, and personally updated stranded terminal passengers, taking responsibility for North Star's maintenance delays instead of blaming the weather. At 3 in the morning, sitting at a workbench in Aaron's office, Vanessa joined her Denver video call. She didn't hide her surroundings, leaving toolboxes and hydraulic drums in the background. When investors looked surprised, Vanessa spoke clearly. "Gentlemen, I am joining from the ground maintenance bay at Pine Ridge. My jet is grounded due to freezing rain and deferred maintenance. In the past, I prioritized short-term cost cuts over underlying safety infrastructure. That was an executive failure. Moving forward, North Star is restructuring to prioritize ground safety. If you want an airline that understands safety as the foundation of profitability, here is our new operational plan. Impressed by her honesty, the board granted North Star a 30-day extension to submit an audited safety-first proposal. By 5 in the morning, the backup rig passed every test. Hydrostatic pressure held, thermal sensors read precisely, and chemical mix was verified. Maya stamped the vehicle log with an active operating permit. Vanessa exhaled. Assuming her jet would be serviced first, Maya picked up her radio. Tower, backup rig 1 is certified. Direct commuter flight 402 to the pad immediately. Vanessa blinked. Wait. My jet has been waiting 6 hours. Maya looked at her calmly. Flight 402 has 62 passengers waiting overnight, including families and elderly travelers. Your jet carries 1 person. In ground operations, passenger volume and delay duration dictate queue priority, not ticket price. Vanessa looked at her private aircraft, then at the crowded terminal gate. She took a deep breath and nodded softly. Send the passenger flight first, Vanessa said. My jet can wait. Clipboard ACT4 and apology written on an invoice, 600 words. Morning sun broke over the frozen runway as the newly certified backup rig moved into position beside commuter flight 402. Aaron managed ground controls while Omar operated the boom, spraying heated fluid across frozen wings until sheet ice melted onto containment pads. The commuter airliner taxied cleanly, taking off safely into the morning sky. Aaron maintained methodical precision for every aircraft, recording holdover times in the master logbook. The medical cargo planes departed next, followed by the worker transport. Nearly 3 hours later, Vanessa's jet was towed to the pad and de-iced. Inside the office, Aaron handed Vanessa the final invoice. He added no punitive fees, just the original $18,400. The crash tender exchanger part, overnight labor, and official inspection fees. Vanessa signed the bill, then adjusted the total, adding an authorized line item bonus to fully fund an advanced hydraulic training program for Aaron's technician team. I'm paying this in full, Mr. Cole, Vanessa said softly. Not as a tip, but because I finally understand what this invoice actually represents. She turned toward Omar, Grace, and the night shift crew. I owe you all an apology, Vanessa said sincerely. Yesterday, I mocked your work and saw an invoice as an unnecessary expense delaying my schedule. I failed to see the skill, responsibility, and dedication required to keep people alive. I saw the price of a repair, but ignored the catastrophic cost of neglect. Thank you for holding the line when I tried to push you past it. Sweeping changes followed at North Star. Vanessa issued an executive order placing ground safety budgets into an independent account protected from arbitrary executive cuts. Ground technicians received explicit authority to ground unsafe equipment without fear of reprisal, and North Star launched a local apprenticeship sponsorship program for ground support equipment careers. Aaron signed a long-term maintenance agreement with North Star under one condition. All safety audits and parts approvals remained under the sole authority of certified technicians and airport operations. As Vanessa walked to her waiting jet, she looked back at the maintenance shop. Aaron was packing away wrenches, preparing to head home after a 16-hour shift. They remained two professionals with mutual respect for the boundary where business demands end and human safety begins. Scroll ACT5. The jobs that never leave the ground. 500 words. 8 months later, Summer sun warmed the tarmac at Pine Ridge. Inside the facility, Blue 7 stood fully restored in deep industrial blue with polished trim. Parked beside it was the backup rig, fully serviced and scheduled for routine monthly checks. North Star no longer deferred routine maintenance to boost short-term balance sheets. In the workshop classroom, Aaron demonstrated hydraulic pump mechanics to middle school students in the airport's new technical orientation program. Among them sat Lila, holding a clipboard. Lila had earned first place at her regional STEM fair for her project, The Invisible Systems, How Ground Support Engineering Prevents In-Flight Catastrophe. As Aaron explained thermal sensors, Lila raised her hand and smiled. I used to think the only important people at an airport were the ones flying planes, she told the class. Now I know no plane reaches the clouds safely unless someone on the ground takes responsibility for what happens before takeoff. Aaron smiled, pride swelling in his chest. Vanessa Reed remained a sharp, competitive CEO who held her staff to high standards. But whenever an operational invoice crossed her desk, she asked 3 questions before reviewing the bottom line. What physical component is being fixed? What is the safety risk of delaying it? And what resources does the technician need to guarantee their signature? Their relationship remained strictly professional. Several months later, Vanessa stopped by the shop during a quiet afternoon, offering to buy Aaron a coffee at the airport diner. Aaron looked up from his workbench with a grin. Is this a meeting to negotiate another invoice, Ms. Reed? Vanessa smiled back warmly. No, Aaron. This time I plan to listen before I make a judgment. Out on the runway, Vanessa's charter jet sat ready for departure to Chicago. From her cabin window, she watched Aaron check landing gear pressure, inspect fuel valve seals, and sign the master clearance form. Only after Aaron clicked his pen and gave a clear hand signal did the captain release the brakes to taxi. The executives in the cabin never knew the mechanic's name. But as the jet lifted smoothly into the clear sky, Vanessa knew that the ordinary signature written on the ground below was the sole reason they were all soaring safely above the earth. Have you ever had someone dismiss your hard work just because they didn't understand what it took to do it right? Do you think Vanessa was right to yield Q priority to the passenger plane before her own jet? What's one job in society that people completely ignore until something goes wrong? Tell us in the comments below. An invoice doesn't just pay for metal, rubber, and fluid. It pays for knowledge, responsibility, and the disasters that never happened. Power and wealth can buy many things, but they can never buy an exception to physical laws. Real leadership isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about fixing the broken systems that created them. Respect the hands that keep the world running below the surface, because no one reaches the clouds without them.